Conviction is brought to you by Three Ring Circus Productions. For links to our valued sponsors and all the show notes from this podcast, please visit our website, threeringcircus.com.au. Episode 12. In the previous episode of Conviction, Craig and the team had set up a covert surveillance of two targets involved in high-level organised crime, Glenn Flack and Richard Harry Harris. This led to the discovery of a garage, which Craig suspected was crucial to their illegal enterprise. We concluded the episode as the team from Project Gymea had just completed an early morning search.
What's happened last night or this morning during those hours between, say, 2 and 4 with the guys who went in. They obviously weren't in there for that whole time because it does take a little bit of time to get into these places and you're just waiting there, but they were definitely in for over an hour. And as everyone came back into the office, into the briefing room and to sit down, the main officer who went in was giving the briefing, and we're all there just waiting with our mouths open wide and our ears ready to listen to what's going on. And the first thing was, it's good news, they were saying. You know, here's this guy called the untouchable Flack. Not that we can nail him down to this garage yet, because it's only Harris that's gone in there, but it's obviously to do with Flack as well. But we find out the thing is like Alladin's cave. It is chock-a-block with everything. Now, when I say everything, I'll just run through some of the things. 14 drums of pseudoephedrine. Now, these drums, each drum's worth about $250,000 each. It's 25 kilos of pseudoephedrine, which is a precursor to make so much drugs. They usually fly this in from, I think, Germany, a lot of the stuff. Now, the guy from the DEA who had just signed up, who went in, from memory I think he said it was possibly some of this stuff was stolen during an armed robbery on a security van that was delivering it to a pharmaceutical company. And that's how, they come into such large amounts. Otherwise you don't come into it. They're concealed or carried in these large cardboard thick drums. They stand about 1 metre tall, I suppose, sealed. I've never seen one before. Obviously saw the photos and the video that they'd taken, and 14 of them in there. There's a couple of $1 million worth just before you actually even use it or sell it on the black market. So there's a heap, and this is, from the DEA's point of view, this is the largest amount they've ever seen. There was also multiple bags of white powder, which turned out to be methamphetamine. That was the main one. You're talking not small bags, these are kilo bags all through the room. And most importantly, there was all these bags, which I learnt for the first time were called urn kits. 4 bags contained balaclavas, gloves, specialised guns. Some of them had pistols, some of them had sawn-off shotguns. I think all in all there was between 12 and 17 firearms in there. Some were contained in the bags, and from what I believe, these urn kits, so say if you were part of the gang, you had your own urn kit, you had your favourite gun in there, you had your own balaclava, your own gloves, or whatever else you're going to use for some violent offence, and that was your kit. So I don't know who the 4 were at this stage, but there were definitely 4 kits in there, and then there was other weapons around, and these were all serious weapons. They weren't just air rifles and things like that. You're talking sawn-off shotties, you're talking really good high calibre pistols. So this was serious stuff. It was the first time I'd come across an amount of drugs like this, together with the violence of the firearms as well. This was going to be a massive job, and as I said, first couple of days in, this is what it's producing. Whether it was luck or whether it was just good work on our behalf, I'll say both. Job on. That's all we can say. Job on. Here we go.
The discovery of the contents of the garage confirmed the suspicions that Harris and Flack were operating a major enterprise. Still, questions remained. Who else was involved? How did they plan to move the product? And were they being protected or aided by corrupt police? The team decided to set up surveillance on the garage in order to gather more intelligence. They were playing a long game.
Well, it was after the briefing, it was time to get home. It's always hard to sleep even though you're so tired, but we were given a number of hours to go home and have a sleep, and then we had to get back. We had so much to do. We had to try and get back into this garage to put cameras, listening devices. We had to try and approach someone in the area that could supply us with a garage similar, or a spot that we could actually use as a post. 24 hours we had to have someone there. We had to log all the movements of people in and out. So yeah, we had a lot of work. We had to install a lot of stuff. We had to be extremely careful that no one disturbed us. We didn't know who was who. We didn't know whether they knew anyone else in the unit block or anyone around that area. It took a couple of days, so we had to go back again at night, the following night, do pretty similar to what we did before, except we'd actually sampled all the drugs and everything else. We took the firing pins out of the guns to make sure that they didn't work. We got the listening device in, we got cameras in, we managed to secure a listening post that was probably within 100 metres of the garage, and we could also sort of get eyes on the in and outs if anyone came, and we could identify things if someone was there. So yeah, that was the next few days.
Everything was in place. Patience and attention are now the tools required.
We were sort of relying on the telephone intercepts and tracking. We had trackers on both the cars of Harris and Flack, so we could actually see where they were going. Didn't necessarily know if they stopped somewhere, whether they saw someone. We just didn't have the resources. We were really limited. We could have done with double the amount in our team, and that's what we ended up having to do. We had to get another couple of detectives in. It was up to the bosses to do that. So while they were looking for more detectives to come into our team who they could trust and who were noteworthy, we just got the investigation going. It was a couple of days later that Flack calls Harris to arrange a meeting again behind the hotel in Ultimo. And it does make it easy when you've got tracking devices on the cars. We can call them coming, they might be half an hour away, so we can get in. I'd been in there a bit earlier and noticed on the previous occasions when they'd had the meetings there that there was a building site in the road that they usually met, and it was quite a big site, and there was a lot of tradies there. And again, it was perfect for me and my white ute. How many white utes were in the street? It was just chock-a-block with white utes. So for me to actually get in a position this time where they met was really good. I would become sort of unrecognisable, I hope, in amongst all the other tradies. Put my work boots on, my blues, and if I needed a fluoro vest or whatever, that's what had to happen. So the day that they were going to meet, we called them in, they called us, that they were getting in there. And I was probably a little bit late because they'd already arrived. And I've come around the corner and there was Flack parked. He was waiting for Harris to get there. He was standing at the back of his car with his arms crossed. Lo and behold, the only bloody parking spot available was where he was facing, right behind his car. So I thought, oh bugger it, I'll do a reverse park and park right next to him. Flack looks at me, but not right at me, looks at the car. And I just get out like normal. I didn't really look at him, didn't note anything. I go to the back of the car, I've got a little portable radio, and I just tell the surrounding crew that I've got eyes, and I've got bloody good eyes, right next to him. So I'm going to see what's going on, everyone just to lay loose. I said I'd turn the radio off because I didn't want it interfering with anything. I didn't want to have anything on my body just in case something happened. I was going to hang close to there. I sort of got my camera rigged up. I had a wheelbarrow in the back. I dragged it out to the back over the tailgate. I had a few other things in the car as well, and I managed to get the video camera in a position without him looking at me that it was going to face Flack. So we hadn't really got much video of Flack before either. This was virtually the first bit of surveillance we'd done close up. So I had a really, really good view of him. And I had the camera straight on him. And I was just waiting for Harris to arrive, and sure enough, Harris enters the street. And he parks right next to me. He parks right adjacent to Flack, so he's 3 metres from the front of my car. The camera's perfectly placed, so just before as I seen him roll in, I've gone and pressed the play button, let it roll, and I'm just moving at the back, fiddling with a shovel and whatever else I had, and away it goes. He's just pulled in and had a quick talk to Flack, so they're standing at the back. Next thing, Flack hits his bonnet on the back boot and up it goes, and there in the back was 4 large bags. It's like these bags you buy at the $2 shop. They're quite big. They're about 1 metre by half a metre. The thin blue, red and white canvassy type, and they're full, totally full. Flack and Harris grab 2 each and throw them in the back of Harris's ute. Harris covers them over, and another quick chat, and they're off, they're gone. And that was it. It was probably happened in about 2 or 3 minutes. I've got it all on video. Worked out really well, close. You could describe everything. I've let them go. I've stayed there. They've disappeared, and I actually stayed, for probably a good 10, 15 minutes in case they did a lap around if they were suspicious of me, but they weren't at all. I just looked like the other, 20 guys walking up and down around the place. Harris has returned back to the Drummoyne property. He was followed to within the area, and then obviously we've got someone at the observation post now, and they called him in, and we didn't need anyone to watch what was going on. We could see everything with a camera, listening device, and he's throwing the bags in the garage. And the only thing was what was in the garage. We all returned to the crime commission, and everyone comes down because the crimes commissioner and the solicitors involved and all the intel officers, they hadn't really had a good look at what was going on. So I bring the video camera back and plug it into the TV and play it, and they couldn't believe it. Here we have Flack with his hands on whatever's in these bags, and we're just itching to see what's in these bags because it's come from him. It's direct. If there's drugs in there, if there's money in there, who knows? But if it is, we've got Flack straight away, and we've got Harris tied in with him.
This is a crucial turning point, as Flack has been observed in a physical encounter with what is assumed to be drugs. However, the contents of the bags needed to be confirmed.
Obviously, we were intrigued to know what was in these bags, and it was going to be another late night. We had to go back into the garage, get a warrant, and find out what the heck was in these bags. So sure enough, we went in that night, same procedure. We'd been in, this is our 3rd time now, so everyone did the same job, and that was the easiest way. No briefing needed, go back the same time. Everyone does the same job, and then we come back to the commission again. It wasn't as long this time because we had our entry we could get in easy. It was a quick one. Anyway, we go back. It must have been probably 2 in the morning that we had a briefing, and we found out that there was in excess of 75 kilos of compressed cannabis head, all packed in these tight bags. So there we go, straight away. It's not as good as having everything else, but it linked Flack to the drugs, the 75 kilos of the compressed head. It linked now to the safe house. So things are starting to go well. We're starting to get on top of this, and we've, within a short period of time, we've got a good brief going.
With the contents of the bags now confirmed, they had the evidence to arrest Flack. However, as always, Project Gymea was interested in following the supply chain to eventually bust the whole syndicate wide open. They had Flack on a leash. They just weren't ready to reel him in.
One of the other interesting things that we did do actually while we're in looking at the cannabis heads is we marked every bag. There was, I think, 15 5-kilo bags of compressed head in the 4 big bags. We were able to use a special highlighter that was invisible, but once you put it under a special UV light, you could actually see the markings on it. And that was to later on help us identify that if we did arrest someone in a different location with this product, we could prove that this came from this garage and these guys were the suppliers. So the 15 individual 5-kilo packs were given a serial number, which was videoed when we went in at that night. This becomes very relevant later on down the track. As I said, we had 2 new staff members, so they were busy trying to catch up with things, and the next few days we were organising more equipment and rostering and monitoring the phones and sort of attending other things that Flack and Harris were going to. And we found, there was new targets that they were having meetings with. One particular guy was Mick Hurley, who was a character from the Glebe area, and back in the 90s described as the Mr. Big for drug importation. And he was a diamond thief back in the 80s. So he was a big character, and we believe that he also had some interest in this garage and the goods that they had there, and he was sort of linked with Flack mainly.
After a relative short time, the phone intercepts reveal a development.
It was about a week later that we heard on the intercept that Flack and Harris were talking, and Flack asked Harris to bring 4 of the things. We sort of knew that was it. We believed that there was going to be the 4 big bags of the head. We didn't need to follow. We had the listening device in place. We had the monitor at the post where the safe house was. We had a tracking device which was showing us where Harris was. We did a loose follow. And again, we believed that the meeting was going to be in a similar spot. And we were going to do very similar to what we did before. I was happy to go back in and sit on the street. I'd gone there early this time and sat pretty similar to where I was before. This time I slightly dressed it up. At the time I was doing, as I said, I was doing a lot of renos at home. I'd built a house previously and still had all the architectural drawings, so I took those with me. And I set myself up with a different type of product to film. I had a video camera hidden in a different way. And I parked my car in the street hoping that these guys were going to come near. I sort of parked a little bit further away from where I was before, but I noticed that there were spots available next to me. And to my luck, Harris was the first one in this time, and he drove down and parked right next to me. I couldn't have been any luckier. I was just standing at the front of my car on the bonnet with the architect drawings of my house spread over it. Just put my glasses on and again told the guys that I had eyes and it was fine. Got the video camera. It wasn't long before Flack arrived. He parked not right next to me but pretty close. Came into view and we had him there. We didn't know what was going on. All we knew that Flack had told him to bring the bags. They were covered. You couldn't see them. Harris had his tonneau cover over the back of his ute, had the back of the tray all closed up. So I was assuming they were in the back. And probably within about 10 minutes, a car pulls up, and that's when we hit the play button. So I had it all videoed again. From memory, it was a silver Ford Falcon. It was late 80s. Out jumped 2 guys. I didn't know them. I'd never seen them before. All banter between the 4 guys then. They obviously knew each other. There was a lot of laughing and carrying on, and probably went for about a minute. The next thing, Harris opens up the ute. 4 bags as quick as they went before, straight into this Ford Falcon. All of them shook hands and departed. Flack and Harris had a quick conversation and then gone. They're all gone within about 4 or 5 minutes.
The surveillance was paying off. They now had knowledge of 2 new key players.
So I made sure that I stayed in put for a while in case they did come back if they were sus. So I just sat there and I was listening to the radio. We've got DVP radios, which is digitally voice protection. It means that if they had scanners, they can't hear what we're talking about. So I was there with ours and on safe mode, obviously, and listening to what was going on. The boys were following the cars back over to the South Sydney side. They went through the city. I waited half an hour and they were over near Maroubra before I moved and headed back towards the Commission. They put the car into an address in Maroubra and 2 of the guys who did the follow stayed there and the rest of us all met back up in the office. It was at this time, I got the video back in those days again, connected it to the big screen and played it, and everyone was there looking. And it was really good having the 2 new guys who'd just been signed up to our unit. They actually came from the south side and they were detectives over there, and they identified the guys straight away. They said the small guy's Rick Montgomery, who was a ex-rugby league player for South Sydney, well known to police in the area. known for drug distribution and other bits and pieces. And the other one was just a bit of a low-level crime guy who was obviously one of his mates, a bloke by the name of Murchie, George Murchie. And he was a driver of the car and the owner of the car. We later found out that the address that they actually went back to and appeared to unload the drugs into the back shed was the mother's house in Maroubra. Now, Maroubra is just a suburb here in Sydney. It's probably about 10 kilometres out of the Sydney centre on a beach. Beautiful beach down at Maroubra, and it's just a normal residential area. It was an old type of house that they went into, fibro sort of cottage with a driveway down the side, and the boys who were doing the surveillance said that they went down, reversed back down the driveway, and it looks like the gear went into a back shed as far as we could see. So obviously it was going to be another long night and day, and now we had another set of targets that we had to look at. What were they going to do with it? Where was these drugs going to go? And this is where the markings come in. The markings that we put on before, we can actually follow these drugs if they're distributed in large quantities, if they stay in the bags, etc. And we can prove then the flow of the drugs and continuity when it comes to court. So it was important for us to get in again, do another covert warrant, and make sure that the drugs were the ones from the garage or the safe house that Harris had been seen to go into over at Drummoyne. These, I talk pretty blasé about executing these covert warrants, but you've got to think a lot of the time we're going into places where people are either asleep in the house or the surrounding. They don't know we're police, we're in plain clothes. We would have to identify ourselves, obviously, if it got to a position like that, but we don't want to spoil the job. Number one is we don't want to disturb anyone, and we have to obviously do a number of checks before we go in to make it safe. There are some properties that you just can't get into. This one we found out that George Murchie rented a place away from here, and so did Rick Montgomery, so neither of the two new suspects lived at this address. It appeared that we had George Murchie's older mother. She was in her 80s, and she appeared to live there by herself through all our intelligence checks. Again, we're running checks straight away as soon as these things happen. We've got a number of analysts on the floor, and they're pumping the information out and coming to us when we're in the meetings and giving us the feedback, and that's how we make these decisions. So again, it was a matter of working out a plan. We had to get a quick layout of the house and where things were. We'd ascertained that she was there by herself. We were happy with that. It was a matter of now waiting for the hours of darkness and the stillness of the night to get in and see what was there and whether it was the drugs, again, that had come from the house. And that's what we did. Again, it was around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I had a position outside. I didn't go in. It was just a surveillance role for me. I'm so glad at this time, Jessica was good and the family were good, because I definitely wouldn't have been able to go through this with the hospital life as well, because that's so demanding. Even though I'd done it with the Kalachi job, it takes its toll on you, all the hours and living the life in hospital as well, in a hospital bed. Nevertheless, we did this, and there was obviously some risk involved, but we got in and found the 4 bags that had been given to Montgomery and Murchie. And lo and behold, in the back of the shed, there was even more. There was all these foam boxes, like fruit and veg boxes. When the boys opened them up, they were full of blocks of hashish. Big black blocks, 1 kilo blocks each, with a fish marked into it. That was the emblem on the hash blocks. All in total, it took a while to count, but there was 750 kilos. So there was 750 1 kilo blocks in foam eskies, which was packed up to the ceiling in this shed. So not only did we have the 75 kilos of compressed cannabis head, we also had 750 kilos now of block hash.
In the next episode of Conviction, the investigation into Flack and Harris intensifies. Craig receives a surprise invitation to Parliament House, and at the same time, the Gymea family are rocked by some devastating news. Conviction, the Craig Gouzet story, is a podcast based on Craig's personal recollections. It is not a full and complete representation of the cases, the people, or the investigations, and therefore should not be taken as such. This podcast is based on Craig's memories. Craig and Three Ring Circus have taken care not to disclose surveillance methods that would compromise police procedures. Only real names have been used where we have permission or the records are public domain.